When you get married, it's really exciting, isn't it? You've just joined forces with that love of your life. But the reality is, your union with that partner is not all there is. You now have a wider family to deal with. The question is, what happens if you end up with challenging in laws? That's what we're going to be talking about today on Relationship Real Talk, where we talk all things relationship, always keeping it real.
Today we're going to be discussing how do you navigate the terrain of dealing with difficult in-laws. I mean, I was reluctant to use the word difficult because the challenge or the difficulty may actually be personal. It is very possible that it's not necessarily that the in-laws are difficult. You could be the difficult one. So I want to come at the question from that stand of view. How do we develop great relationship with our in-laws?
Absolutely. I mean, the funny thing is you can choose your friends, but you cannot choose your family. And just as we can't choose our biological family, you can't choose your extended family either. You chose your spouse, but you didn't choose everything else or everyone else that came with your spouse. But the reality is you're where you are. And even though we get married to the person we get married to, the relationship we have with that person is not in isolation. That's why we're having this conversation, isn't it? That's why it's important that we think about the relationship we have with that person's family, with our wife or our husband's family, because me and my husband might have a fantastic family, but that's not enough because he has an extended family. And whether we like it or not, his relationship with his family could impact on our relationship with one another. And my relationship with his family could impact on my relationship with him, because when you get married, you don't divorce your family, do you?
No.
My mom is still my mom, my dad is still my dad, my siblings are still my siblings. And so if the person I'm married to does not have a great relationship with my siblings, it could begin to affect the relationship that I have with them. Why? Because we're all connected somehow. I think that's the first thing to realize, that we are all connected. And because we're all connected, we cannot take the attitude of, well, that's your problem. I'm not married to you. I don't care about you. No, we have to care. So that's the starting point. We have to care. So how do you deal with it? Let's take a step back. What are some of the things that could be cropping up that could cause you to think you have difficult in-laws? Because I've realized that life is all about perception. It's about how we see things. So let's look at the symptoms. Right? Look at whatever it is that person is doing or the attitude they're displaying that is causing you to consider them to be a challenge, and start to ask yourself some questions. Is it really true that this person is challenging or difficult, or is it just because of the way I am perceiving them? Very often we'll say things like, oh, I don't know. There's just something about that person. And I often say, please don't just stop at there's just something about that person. What is the something? Right? So break it down. What exactly is it about this person that you're finding challenging? Because often when we verbalize it and clarify it, it removes the mysticism around the issue. It prevents it from being up in the air and it's just in your mind, oh, I just don't like that person. But you cannot actually articulate why you don't like the person. So I would say, what is it? Ask yourself that question. What is it about this person that you're finding challenging? Is it you feel like they're intruding on your privacy? Do they show up unannounced? Do they give unwarranted or unsolicited advice? What is it exactly about that person that you don't like? I would say start from there so that you can then begin to look at it and think, is it really that bad, or am I blowing it out of proportion?
I think it's super important that we begin with ourselves. So in a relationship, especially if maybe you're newly married or early days just yet, I think it's super important that the husband, for example, presents his family to the wife in a very healthy manner. I know it's very difficult. I know it's very possible that you've had terrible relationship with people on your side of the family, and you probably don't like one or two people. That may be very difficult for you to avoid discussing with your wife. What I mean is, if you didn't like Uncle A and you didn't like Auntie C, you're probably going to present them in a very negative way, and therefore you start with your wife on a wrong footing. So, as difficult as that may be, it is essential that you allow your spouse to find out themselves. Don't warn them. And the reason I'm kind of hesitating to say this is, well, I have to protect my spouse. I would say, just with an open mind, allow your wife to discover, because if you exchange your negativity with your spouse, they are just going to carry on from where you are, and it is going to almost be impossible for them not to have a negative relationship with that person. Secondly, I think it is important also to have a conversation with your family as much as possible and tell them, or rather discuss with them, what is acceptable on your family. For example, you don't want members of your family to show up unannounced, or even when they show up, what they expect. So you have to set the boundaries, so to say, with your family and say, listen, my wife is my wife, and as much as she's coming into the family, these and these and these are what I will accept, from you, and vice versa, basically, just to set expectations so that nobody is disappointed.
Just to go back to what you were saying about, not in a sense painting your family in a bad picture before your spouse. I totally get that, and I totally agree with that. I think it's important that we honor our family, because the way you present your family to your spouse could to a large extent determine how they relate with your family. If you don't honor your parents, for instance, your spouse has the liberty not to honor your parents, especially if they feel that maybe they don't particularly like them. You've given them license not to honor your parents. So I think that's so important that we, when we get married, that we maintain the role that our own family has to play in our lives. My mom is still my mom, my dad is still my dad, my siblings are still my siblings, and I do what I should do for my dad, my mom, my siblings. I need to go out of my way to maintain those relationships and keep them healthy. It will help me in my home with my spouse. That's important. However, I do think if there's a real issue, I'm not just talking about petty things now, but if there's a real issue that and I'm saying wife often, because often it is the wife that seems to have challenges with the husband's family. Not always the case, but often that's the case. So, but let me keep it general. It could be the case that there's a real issue in this family that your spouse needs to be aware of. And I think it's a wise thing to let them know, to prepare them. However, I do think the way you present it is important. So rather than saying, for instance, oh, my mom is always criticizing people or whatever, you might say, just so you know, my mom is very particular about the way she likes her things. So if she comes across as criticizing you, please don't take it personal. It's just the way she is. I think to some degree, it's actually healthy and helpful to, in a sense, prepare your spouse for what to expect. So that when it happens, they don't misread it, number one, and they don't take it too much to heart, and they're just prepared. So while I agree that, you shouldn't project maybe your own lack of cordiality or your own sense of not getting along with somebody else, project that on your spouse. I do think if there's a real issue that your spouse would benefit from knowing, I think it's important you let them know, but present it in a healthy way so that they're prepared but not prejudiced. I think that's important. And yes, like you said, it's important to set boundaries as well, so that your spouse's family know what you what happens in your home, because you're now in a different family. And that's the funny thing about the dynamics of what we're talking about. You have two families in a sense, right? So you have your family that you grew up in, and now you have a new family that you're forming, and both of them are valid, both of them are precious, both of them have their places, but you may now need to set boundaries as to what your new family expects from your old family, so that lines are not crossed. Because I think when you set upfront expectations, you reduce back end problems. But if you don't, and things, you just let things happen, and then you start trying to repair when it's already happened, that's where you start to have tension. So I think it's really important that you let your family know what you expect as a man, what you expect from them, what you expect, how you expect them to treat your wife, what you expect from your wife to your family as well. So I think just setting those boundaries is quite important.
I believe very seriously, I believe wholeheartedly rather, that what you expect, you attract. So if I am getting married to my wife all over again, I expect the best of her family. I expect the best of the people that I'm going to be relating with. I expect them to like me, and vice versa. And when you're going into marriage, I would advise that you have that positive mindset that the people are going to be great to you. However, as much as you expect them to be great to you, you need to be great to them as well. Because whatever you sow is what you're going to reap. So avoid discussing negativity or negative issues with your spouse. Basically, avoid giving her a list. This person, be very careful, be very, otherwise you're going to step on their toe. Let them find out. If they step on their toe, then deal with it, I think it's healthier that way. To build relationship, because once you've given them a list of bad people to avoid, they will just toe the line.
Okay, so just going back then, just because you went back to it, just so I understand, are you saying there's no circumstances whatsoever where it is appropriate for you to kind of prepare your spouse for what to expect from maybe certain members of your family? And like I said, not presenting it in a negative way, but kind of forewarning them to know this is the way this person is, so that when they do this, don't take it wrong. Do you think there's never any justification for doing that?
It's difficult. It's difficult to imagine all the scenarios. I mean, if it is personal differences between you and the other person, I struggle to find a justification to say
not personal differences. So like the example I gave, for instance, where I said your mom might be very particular about something and very vocal about her particularity about rephrase, I don't know, say a word like that. Your mom might be very particular about something and almost like a perfectionist, and very vocal, very upfront, direct about how she goes about expressing herself in terms of what she wants. So in those situations, for instance, she could come across as quite in your face, and for a new wife that could be intimidating. So would it be helpful to her if the husband said to her, my mom is almost like a perfectionist, she wants things in a particular way, so if she ever says this has to be this or whatever, just know that it's nothing personal, it's just the way she is, something like that? Do you think that would be helpful to something?
I guess if it is presented like that, that isn't negative. So
exactly,
that is being cautious, However, the point I'm making is avoid projecting your negativity towards somebody else.
Absolutely.
Don't say that uncle, just avoid them, basically, that kind of a thing. So yeah, and if there are issues in the future, just deal with it as you go along. But I want to reiterate the point that I made earlier, that a lot of these issues begin with self. So if you going into, regardless of what your spouse said to you, if you decide in your mind, I'm going to be the best me in relating to my new family. If you focus on that, you will be surprised that somehow they will respond to your positivity. But if you go into a new family expecting problem, you will definitely get problem, because like I said before, you often get what you expect. What you expect, you attract.
Absolutely. I think, and it goes back to perspective as well, because the way we see things determines how we do things. And so if you're going in with your eyes already colored with this bias of they don't like me, they're not going to like me, they're difficult, then chances are you will see all the difficult things. So that's really, really important. Now, if you have a comment, if anything we've said is struck a chord or raised a question, or maybe you're even experiencing this right now and you're thinking you have no idea what I am going through, you have no idea the family I'm married into, what about this, what about that, please drop your questions in the chat, drop your comments in the comment section. We want to hear from you. And yes, this is not live, but we will deal with any questions that you put forward. So please feel free to put your questions through. We love to keep it real. But something else that just occurred to me is just the importance of you, as a wife, you as a husband, playing your role within your family. Now, I'm not talking about your new family now, but when I say playing your role, what I mean is, for instance, as a son, okay? So assuming you're a son, you just got married, maybe you're the only son, and then your mother feels like she never sees you anymore. You never call her. She feels like she's lost a son rather than gained a daughter. That could cause some sort of resentment in her, that could cause her to maybe even subconsciously start to act to your spouse in a not so nice manner. So like I said before, we have two families now. When you get married, you have two families. Your union with your husband or your wife does not negate the relationship you have in your biological family. It doesn't. You still have a role to play as a son, as a daughter, as a sibling, right? So I think bearing that in mind and doing the needful, as they say, within your family will just make it easier for everybody to get along and prevent resentment. Honor your wife, absolutely. Honor your wife, honor your husband before your family, but honor your family before your wife, and play your role in their lives. Play your role in the lives of your siblings. Because if they feel like, oh, since my brother got married, he never calls me, I don't even have a relationship with him anymore, he doesn't care about me, then that could breed resentment, and that could be a reason why a reason for them to hold on to as to why they don't want to get close to your wife, because now they see your wife as a threat. So yeah, it's so important to live up to our roles within our biological family, even though we're now married. But I know we've talked about the ideal, and we've talked about the importance of setting boundaries, going in with the right attitude, going in with the right expectations and all of that. However, let's face it, there are challenging people in this world. There are challenging people. It could be as a result of things they've been through in their own lives. It could be as a result of advice that they've received that is not great advice. Whatever reason, there are people who are just more difficult to get along with than others. That's the reality. So what if you find that in your spouse's family? What do you do?
Well, I am almost going to go back on my point, which is life begins with self. Life operates on the principle of seed and harvest. Of course, there will be challenging people, be it at work, be it at home, or anywhere. If the focus is on ourselves, then we are more in control of how we deal with people. So yes, life will present us with challenging situations and challenging people. And the way I kind of approach that is tough situations toughens you and brings out the best in you. So my advice would be to focus on self as opposed to focusing on what other people are doing. That I hope that doesn't come across as being overly simplistic, but it is the best advice that I can give you, because how you navigate difficult terrains should be dictated by yourself. If you respond to everything that goes around you, then you are not in control. But if you dictate the pace, i.e., you have a lot of self-growth and self-development, how to deal with people, you will sense difficult people, and you will dictate how you relate to them, and you will determine how you respond to what they do, as opposed to giving them the power to dictate the pace, to dictate the response, and so on and so forth.
Great. Now, have you subscribed? If you have not yet subscribed, you need to hit that subscribe button so you can be notified when we release new episodes. And obviously, like this video, share it with somebody who you know will benefit from it. But just to add to that point about how do you deal with the situation where you're really finding this a challenge. Maybe you've even tried, right? Maybe you've even tried. You try to be nice. You try to repay rudeness with kindness, and it just seems to get thrown in your face back over and over and over and over again. What do you do? I think the question you want to ask yourself is, what do you want in this relationship? Peace of mind, right? Number one, peace of mind. You don't want the relationship between you or the challenging relationship, let's just say for the sake of argument, it's your husband's mother, because very often we talk about the mother-in-laws, don't we? So let's go with that scenario and say it's your husband's mother, and your husband's mother is a bit of a challenge, but your husband loves his mother, right? So do you agree that if you start to maybe be difficult with the mom, and you always want to complain about the mom to your husband and all of these things, do you agree that it could begin to cause tension between you and your husband? Absolutely. So what do you do? I think the important one thing I would say is check your assumptions. Right. So on the last episode, I believe it was the last episode of Relationship Real Talk, we're talking about assumptions and the importance of making positive assumptions. So check your assumptions. Check the assumptions you're making about that woman, about your mother-in-law. It could be the case that you didn't get off on the right footing at all. It might even be that she was rude to you the first day she saw you. But on that basis, you have made certain assumptions that now dictates how you relate to her. So check the assumptions. The fact that somebody was rude once doesn't mean they're always rude. The fact that somebody was, just unfriendly once doesn't mean they're always unfriendly. So check the assumptions you're holding about that person. That's the first thing I would say. The other thing I would say is, and I know it's difficult, but forgiveness is a powerful thing. Forgiveness is a powerful thing. And when you learn to forgive people, even when you know they have hurt you, even when you feel like it's unjustified, it's not necessary, you don't deserve it, and they just keep doing things to you that are undeserving, if you can rise up above that and forgive them, what it does is it releases you from prison. It releases you from prison. So yes, it's painful. Yes, it's not easy, but you must learn to forgive them. You must learn to forgive them. Now, I really want to keep this as real as possible. What if it's a situation where it's really, really bad? You can never do anything right. It doesn't matter how hard you try. This woman or this man or whoever they are just love to keep you, just love to put you down. It may get to the point where you and your spouse will need to have a conversation about it. Because if you don't, then you could find yourself in a situation where you are feeling undermined, you're feeling unappreciated, and you might even begin to take it out on your spouse when they know nothing about it. So you may get to that point where you have to talk about it, to say, listen, I really don't know what I've done here, but this is the situation, this is what I've faced, and back it up with the instances, and then both of you, because this is where I'm coming from. You are in a union, right? Husband and wife shall become one. That's where we always come from. The marriage is a union, and both of you are one. And anything that's going to come against that union should not be tolerated. So whatever it may be, right? If it's now becoming a huge problem that it could now be bringing separation between two of you, you need to talk about it. Let your spouse know what's going on, and together you come up with a solution, whatever that solution may be. If it is the case that this person is really, really a challenge, and no matter what you do, there's just no way, then both of you might agree, well, we won't go as often, we won't stay as long, as one of my mentors puts it. You may just need to say, okay, we'll just find a way to manage this relationship. They're family members, we cannot cut them off completely, but we may just need to limit our interaction with them, just so that we can have peace in our union. It may get to that. And if it does, so be it. But whatever you do, don't suffer in silence. Don't suffer in silence. Don't keep it in darkness. Speak to your spouse if it gets to that point where you feel like, I can't handle this anymore by myself. That's something else I would say.
If anybody makes any slight comment about your spouse, you need to be the first to firmly reject that and to present your spouse in a positive manner. If you're always going to your side of the family, for example, to whine about your spouse and to say the negative things they're doing, your family are going to pick that up, and they're going to deal with your spouse based on the presentations that you have made. And I'm not in any way saying that you don't seek for help when help is required, but you need to be able to protect your spouse. Don't be the first to say the wrong thing about your spouse, or they don't listen, or they're just rude, or they're just difficult to get by. So you could be going through a challenging time in your relationship, for example, and issues to deal with. And you are going to your side of the family to present your spouse, in negative light. You really want to avoid that. So protect each other.
Well, we hope some of these things have helped. But like we said, if you've got any comments or questions, or you feel like there's some bits that we haven't quite addressed, then please put your comments in the comment section. We would love to hear from you. And share the video, like the video, subscribe, so that you can be notified when new episodes drop. So we've talked a lot today. We talked about the importance of setting boundaries. We talked about the importance of playing your role within your biological family, so you're not causing any resentment there. We've talked about the importance of going with great expectation, positive expectations, making positive assumptions. We've talked about being open with each other. If there's really something to be talked about there, then talk about it, so nobody's feels like they're being neglected, or they're being put in line of fire. They feel like there's nowhere for them to go. And if you need professional help at the end of the day, get professional help. We've also talked about the importance of not casting your spouse in bad light before your family, and vice versa, not putting your family in bad light to your spouse, because all those things just causes problem. But we've also talked about the importance of your own personal growth and your own personal development, because when you grow, you become more resilient, you become wiser, you're able to take things that maybe you weren't able to take years ago. I can speak for myself, right? So whereas before, maybe 8-10 years ago, if somebody said something I found challenging or annoying, I might respond there and then and just say it as it is, or say how I feel. But now, because I'm grown, I'm able to deal with things better, and I'm wiser. So growing yourself will help you deal with challenges, period. Challenging people, challenging times, challenging situations. So investing in your own growth will also help you. But that's what we've got for you today. Until next time, this has been Mary and
Julius Eniolu,
your Relationship Real Talk hosts, where we talk all things relationship, always keeping it real. See you next time.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.